So Oreo Puppy Dog asked a really good question. And you know what? I think this may end up being a standalone video that I cut out of this one as a little thing. But this is a really good question. So it's important to note in the new playoff, yes, there are 12 teams, but it is not necessarily the top 12. I can just say that it's not the top 12 teams. It just won't be because they're going to have to rewrite the rules this year because it's already null and void based on the fact that there will not be a fifth Power 5 conference. There's only going to be 4.
And by next year, there may not be 4.
Exactly. I mean, like, that's the thing. So previously, under the current rules, which are about to change because they have to, the conference champion of each of the Power 5 conferences were guaranteed a spot in the playoff.
Not just guaranteed a spot, guaranteed a first round bye.
That's right. The top 4 of the 5 were guaranteed a first round bye.
So this year, if that had been in place this year, Arizona would have gotten a bye.
Yeah, because Arizona would have been in the Big 12, and so they would have been a conference champion in the Big 12 because the Big 12 conference champion, Texas, would have been in the SEC. And so Arizona would have gotten a bye, and they were not in the top 12 teams at the end of the year. So just because we're saying it's 12 teams, that does not mean that it will be the top 12 teams in the college football playoff poll. It doesn't have to be, because there is one spot also reserved if the highest rated non-group of 5, which next year will be the highest rated non-group of 4 power conference teams, if they are not in the top 12, then they automatically receive the 12th seed in the playoff. So, for example, this year, Liberty, who was not in the top 12 and was the highest rated group of 5 school, they would have received the 12th spot in the playoff.
And we saw what happened when they had to play Oregon.
Exactly. So the highest rated group of 5 school. Now, if the highest rated group of 5 schools in the top 12, then yeah, you got, the top 12 potentially in the playoff. I highly doubt that'll ever happen. But I mean, Liberty was 13-0 and they still weren't in the top 12. So
hopefully moving forward, Notre Dame will be the first option for that 12 spot, and we won't end up with a Liberty or a Coastal Carolina or anybody like that occupying one of those spots.
That's a good point. And it's also maybe an incentive for people to stay independent, even as we move to Power 3 conferences eventually is what it's going to end up at. But so to Oreo Puppy Dog's question, how many games can Tennessee lose and still get in? Well, in theory, here's the thing. It is extremely likely that from this point forward, both teams in the SEC championship game would be undefeated.
Yeah.
Because with 16 teams in the conference now and 8 conference games, you're not even playing half the conference. And so it is extremely likely that there will be at least 2 teams who are undefeated in the conference who will make it to the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
Question is, how many games can we lose? So that means we're not winning the SEC. So 5 of the 11 spots are now taken by 4 conference champions and the group of 5 school. So now we're only down to 6 spots left. And if we're not in our conference championship game, which you probably have to be undefeated to get into that, maybe 1 loss tops. I mean, if the only way I could see us getting into the playoff, even with 2 losses, is if Georgia and Alabama are the 2 teams in the SEC championship game, and they're both, and this wouldn't even be possible next year because Georgia and Alabama play each other next year in the regular season. So I was going to say, if they're both undefeated and there are only 2 losses, then that would look good on us. We might sneak in that last, number 11 spot, maybe, but that won't even be the case next year because Georgia and Alabama will play each other. So one of them is going to have a loss. So Georgia and Alabama may not even be in the SEC championship game next year because one of them.
Texas is probably going to have something to say about that.
Exactly. So, I mean, that hurts us, that Georgia and Alabama play each other during the season. Because you got to figure Texas might run the table. So if they do, then that means you have Texas and you've got the winner of Bama, Georgia in the championship game. But one of the two of them plays Texas, I think, during the regular season. I'll have to go back and look. But, man, it's going to be wild. But so how many games can we lose and still get in? Comfortably one. We can only lose one game. And if that one loss gets us to the SEC championship game, I think you could lose the SEC championship game and still get in as a 2-loss team. But if you have 2 losses in the regular season, man, that makes it tough. Because in future years, if Georgia and Alabama don't play each other in the regular season and they both make it to the championship game, then you could sneak in. But in a season where they're going to play each other, I don't see how it's possible. So one, I guess, would be my answer to make sure that you're in. And how many SEC teams allowed in? I mean, in theory, you could have up to 6, but there won't be that many, because, like I said, you got 4 conference champions and a group of 5. So that's 5. So you have 6 spots left. So I guess in theory you could have 7 SEC teams, their conference champion, and 6 others, but that won't happen. So, I mean, I would venture to guess I would think there would at least be 3 or 4 every year that get in, especially with Texas and Oklahoma being in the SEC now. I would venture to guess you'll have at least 3, maybe occasionally 4. But I mean, the Big Ten's going to be the same thing. They're going to get 3 or 4 in every year too. What do you think? Do you agree with that, or do you think is a different scenario?
I think this upcoming year the SEC will get at least 5. I think the SEC is going to be significantly stronger than every other conference by a lot. And I think strength of schedule, this is finally the playoff committee's opportunity to really say strength of schedule truly matters and not get bogged down in, well, what about this conference? What about that conference? I mean, if you look at the other conferences, I mean, outside of Florida State, Michigan loses almost everything. Washington loses a lot. They're going to lose a lot to the draft. USC will be decent. Oregon will be good. But I mean, who else in the ACC is really concerning? Clemson's relegated to just slightly better than average. They're not playing very well. I think there's easily 5 SEC teams that'll make it, maybe 6. I'm not saying that's going to happen every year, but I think this upcoming year, that's going to be reality.
That'd be wonderful.
Tennessee's going to be significantly better. Ole Miss is going to be significantly better. Alabama and Georgia will be Alabama and Georgia. Texas is going to keep being good. There's 5 right there. If Missouri stays where they are, that's 6. I think LSU will take a step back, especially after losing their offensive coordinators. They're going to be breaking in a new OC plus a new quarterback. They'll lose several guys to the draft. They've already got guys jumping in the portal that they were hoping on for the future. So, things aren't rosy behind the scenes in Baton Rouge. I think they'll probably take a step backwards. But, I mean, I could legitimately see 5, maybe 6 SEC teams get in this upcoming year.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, Missouri shocked everybody this year. And so, I don't know. It'll be fascinating when you sit down and break down the schedules, who's playing who. It'll be very interesting to see. And obviously, we'll do that over. We got the whole off season. So we'll do that. We'll do videos about that too, just like we did this year. Tony was talking about the playoff scenario, it's really the best 11, and sometimes not even that really. And I think easily you could say 10 of the best teams. Well, 9 of the best teams will always be in it, but after that,
Yeah.
that 10 and 11 spot could be people who look up and win a conference championship. I mean, think about this: what if Iowa had beat Michigan in the conference championship game? They would have been an automatic qualifier with a first round bye.
Yep.
And that's one thing about the Power 5 going to Power 4 is that now all 4 conference champions are guaranteed, like Rustin said, are guaranteed first round buys in the playoff.
Which is really wrong. Like that they need to, when the ACC starts dissolving, they need to use that as leverage to eliminate that policy, because it's not if you want to have the 12 best teams, then rank them just like you do the NCAA tournament. Don't
Sure.
sit here and go,
Yeah.
oh, well, if you're in this conference, you get an automatic bid and a bye. That makes no sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the only 10 you see just hit the nail on the head. She said the outrage of teams that didn't get in that feel they deserve it is going to be entertaining.
Yeah.
So she's exactly right, because it's not an if, it's a when. There's a situation where, like a top 10 team. I mean, seriously, it could be number 9 or number 10. And somebody has a major upset in a conference championship game. And all of a sudden that number 10 team are out because that highest group of 5 and the upset conference champion are in the game or in the playoff. And that literally a top 10 team will be out of a 12 team playoff.
If New Mexico State had beaten Liberty in their conference championship, New Mexico State would have been that number 12 team. Think about that.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be the 12 best teams. That's for sure. That is for sure.